primary source of nutrition is either formula or breast milk. And formula is a powder that can be mixed with water. And that's the primary source of nutrition for most babies. Only 35% of babies at 6 months old are exclusively breastfed, and it goes down to 15% at 1 year old. So the vast majority of American infants are fed with formula.
Mendel tells AFN the Biden administration needs to do more to ensure mothers and children get what they need. Many Twitter users are seeing a big uptick in the number of so-called followers, and it's anyone's guess as to why. Clay Travis of Outkick says he's noticed it too, and he offered this theory on Fox and Friends.
It's not just conservatives gaining, it's left-wingers losing, which makes me wonder whether Twitter is starting to pull back on some of the guardrails that they put up, which were rigged in favor of left-wingers, and they're doing that because they're worried that Elon Musk may be coming in and starting to publicize potentially some of the algorithms, some of the behind-the-scenes data manipulation that was going on inside of Twitter. So I'd lean more towards that. I think that we're just seeing some of these restrictions taken off, and the result is you're seeing what conservatives have argued for a long time, that this was a rigged social media game designed to favor the left-wingers. And with Elon Musk coming in, those prescriptions are returning to more of a normalcy.
You can read more about this on afn.net. Feel free to tweet it. In final news this hour, a Georgia woman who has worked at the same restaurant for over 2 decades was honored this week by the company after grilling her 1 millionth steak. Find more news on afn.net. Be sure to subscribe to our free daily email news briefs and like us on Facebook.
When you hear this,
this is American Family News.
You know what follows is the truth. Your news from a Christian perspective.
Hundreds of teachers are going to have to walk into that school building, and they are forced to swallow political ideology that in many cases violates their very faith and conscience.
If you miss it at the top of the hour, American Family News podcasts are available at afn.net. And sign up for our daily news brief at afn.net.
You know, as Christians, we have to understand and be real with where we are.
That's what we have to see first, individually.
And where our mindset is and what we desire.
Airing the Addisons.
I think what God is really calling us back to, it's those individual personal revivals in our own lives where we're like, oh Lord, what have we done? We have minimized you.
Promoting truth, wisdom, and empowerment.
As the church, man, we should be on the forefront of making disciples, of indoctrination and godly things.
If we don't train our kids, they will not be able to stand.
Very famously, the Bible says, train up a child in the way that they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. The Bible has a lot to say about parenting and especially raising your children in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. Hi, Alex McFarland here. So glad you're listening to the American Family Radio Network. Got a great show. In just a moment, I want you to meet a very special colleague and friend. And later on in the show, we're going to hear from a college student from East Tennessee State University, a student that has organized a big event that's going to take place tomorrow evening at East Tennessee State, and I'll be there speaking. So if you happen to be in the Johnson City, Tennessee area, perhaps we can meet face-to-face tomorrow night at East Tennessee State. But right now, as I was preparing for the program, I was reading a couple of things. For one thing, there was an article about the top 40 U.S. states that people are leaving. And there are, 25 to 35 states that are having much more excess than ingress. And then there were a list of the states people are going to. Now, interestingly, not surprisingly, people are leaving the blue states, and people are trying to migrate to the red states. The more conservative states, the more freedom, lower taxes, less government ideologically led programs. People are going to the states that are the more free states. On a parallel note, thousands of disheartened families yanking kids out of public schools. One of the things that drives the migration to the more free states, not just lower taxation, more freedoms, more constitutionality, but school choice, and then not only school choice, but people taking their children out of public schools and opting for private schooling, homeschooling, and frankly, education that's just less about ideology and more about truth. Well, I wanted to get some insight on that, and really when it comes to calling out the public schools for their left-wing indoctrinations, really few voices are as informed and really as consistent over the years as the voice of Colonel Ray Moore of Exodus Mandate. He's a longtime colleague and friend. I wanted to get him on and just get caught up with his ministry and then really get his analysis of some of the statistics. But Colonel Ray Moore, Christian brother, patriot, friend, and all-around American hero. Are you there, my friend?
Yes, I am. And thank you, Dr. McFarland. And my son, I hope, will turn out to hear you speak tomorrow night in East Tennessee State University in Johnson City. He has to work a little late, but I've urged him to come over to the program, and he'll be able to see him because he has a red beard. It's trimmed,
okay,
but he should be there tomorrow night.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And folks, later on in the show, and I say this for a couple of reasons, but if you want to try to organize a campus event, and I've spoken at a couple of hundred American universities, we're going to, in about 20 minutes, we'll hear from the student that really, along with Turning Point USA, helped us get this event together at East Tennessee State. But Colonel Ray Moore, I want to throw some headlines your way for analysis. But first of all, tell us about Exodus Mandate.
We started Exodus Mandate 25 years ago to help Christians, families, and churches to see the need to exit and the public school system entirely and go to the promised land of campus Christian schools, K-12, or homeschooling. And we've been doing that consistently for 25 years, and it's only been in the last 2 or 3 years that we've just exploded with the COVID and the pandemic shutting down public schools. We have seen an extraordinary growth in our movement. Homeschooling jumped from 2.5 million 2 years ago when the schools closed to 5 or 6 million permanent homeschoolers, and it may go much higher. We just don't know where it's going to end. Campus Christian schools are growing at the rate of 10, 20, and 30% a year, and we're seeing dozens, if not hundreds, of new campus Christian school startups are underway even as I speak. So we could reasonably see the private Christian and homeschool movement grow to 25 or 30%, if not more, before the smoke clears. It's quite unbelievable. We call it a once-in-a-100-year moment for Christian schools and homeschooling.
Now, what got you into this? Why are you so passionate about getting young people out from under the monopoly of public schooling?
Well, we feel the scriptures are very clear that this is commanded of God. You quoted Proverbs 22:6, but there are many other texts that Christians should give their children exclusively Christian education and not put them in pagan and godless public schools. We feel that's a violation of Scripture. Now, we've done it for many, many decades, if not 150, 170 years since the beginning of state-sponsored public schools, and they've not always been as bad as they are today, but they're absolutely demonic and socialistic and anti-Christian today, and there's no excuse for Christians to leave their kids there when they have other options.
You know, and I've got to tell you, I mean, I've believed in you for well more than a decade, 12 or 15 years I've known of you. But I got to tell you, I have to confess, Ray, that there were times when I would hear you speak and I would think, you know, I just don't see how it could happen to make the exodus from public education. But COVID changed everything. I mean, tell us, in your opinion, how COVID and just the reset culturally, how this was such a game changer.
Well, parents were not paying attention, sadly. They were just assuming that the schools were okay. When they closed the schools, suddenly they were doing online schooling in their living room, and the mom and dad were looking over the shoulder at the curriculum, and they were just horrified. It was borderline pornography coming into their living rooms. And so they suddenly realized that something is terribly wrong, and I haven't been paying attention as a mom and dad, and now I'm going to take Johnny and Mary out. A lot of people were thinking about homeschooling or Christian schooling, but they were just lazy, or there was inertia holding them back, and suddenly when they were forced to do it, they said to themselves, I can do this. It's not so bad, and I think we're going to continue doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, so give some websites for those that are looking into homeschooling or trying to find a good Christian school or some educational options besides public education. Where do you recommend people start?
Well, I think the best website right now nationally is publicschoolexit.com. They're a San Diego-based ministry, and I'm chairman of the board. It was started by Dran Reese from San Diego, and she runs Salt and Light Council. And it's about 2 years old, and it's just absolutely dynamic, exploding all across the country. We're even reaching into Canada. And it's doing a great job, and it really created a site that was created for newbies and people who want to get started, but they're just afraid. They don't know where to go. They don't know anything about curriculum. They don't know anything about Christian school or homeschool models. Now, you go to that website, and you can get a lot of your questions answered, but you can't be lazy. You've got to be diligent. You've got to be willing to take a few hours and study. And they also have a consulting service to try to help families transition from public schools into campus Christian schools or homeschooling. And that website, again, is publicschoolexit.com. And then my site is really not as strong as that one, but I started this one 25 years ago, and that's exodusmandate.org, exodusmandate.org, if people want to reach me personally.
Well, Ray, let me say this. There are people, and I hear from them every week, who say, well, here's what we're going to do as a patriot, as a Christian, we're going to run for school board. And we're going to just renew things by getting involved in local school. The reasoning is this way, let's not abandon public education, but we Christians will infiltrate. Do you feel like that's a good strategy?
No, I really don't. I do not advise that. In fact, I advise strongly against it. A lot of that is based on the argument of the critical race theory movement that's so powerful in public schools now. But if they were successful in defeating critical race theory, there's a dozen other poisons and toxins and viruses they'd have to deal with. The left is so embedded and so strong in the public school system now that running for school board would not have any real effect on it at all. And it would be a futile waste of energy. And if they have time to do something, they should get out and get with their church or their pastor or their elders and start a Christian school. That would make a difference. Running the school board would be a waste of time, in my opinion. There was a case where it was attempted in San Diego maybe 10, 20 years ago, and they were successful in running in San Diego County. They ran for 50 seats and won 36 and took total control of 3 school districts in San Diego County, and it made not one bit of difference. They could not change the schools, and they were sued. The new school board members, all of whom were Christians, were sued. They were attacked mercilessly in the newspapers, and after 4 years, they were either defeated or just gave up because it was such a futile effort. So it's really hasn't worked anywhere, and we certainly don't want to try it now when we've got them backing down and beating them. We don't want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory by doing something that won't matter.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. Hey, let me ask you this. What are the top 2 or 3 issues, in your opinion, Colonel Ray Moore? By the way, if you're just tuning in, we're talking with Colonel Ray Moore of Exodus Mandate. We're lamenting the not only anti-American, anti-patriotic, but anti-Christian state of the public schools. Let me ask you this, Colonel Moore. What are the top 2 or 3 issues where kids will get a vastly different worldview in a public school than the worldview they would get in a Christian or private school?
Well, right now, critical race theory is at the top of the agenda. It seems to be angering more people than anything else, and basically it's a counter form of racism. They're saying basically that white people are all racist, and that the culture we have is inherently racist. And it's just we've had a problem with racism in the past, and we've overcome it to a large degree. But now it's turned around and it's been reversed. So people are really angry about that, and a lot of them are leaving over that. Of course, you've got LGBTQ being indoctrinated in the children, and you've got evolution. Howard Zinn's a Marxist interpretation of American history. It's just dozens of toxins and viruses. And so the children are going to be completely brainwashed. And we know now that 70% of the millennials, that's the 18 to 34-year-olds, are self-described socialists and Democrats, primarily because of their public school training. And you get a whole different product through a private Christian school or a home school. So we think it's time for the pastors and the churches to step up into this moment, this divine moment that we're in, once in a 100-year opportunity, and let's grow homeschooling and Christian schooling. And perhaps we'll have a tipping point, and maybe millions more will give up public schooling, and we can move into a new paradigm where the primary model for K-12 education will be Christian schools and homeschooling, not public schooling. And that will bring about the revival that we're looking for.
Wow. Folks, this is the American Family Radio Network. Alex McFarland here. We're speaking with Colonel Ray Moore of Exodus Mandate. The Marxist Antonio Gramsci years ago said that socialism, communism had to make, quote, the long march through the institutions. And by that, he meant government, education, the marketplace, even the church. And in the Western world, to a large degree, they've done that. But we who love God and country, if you're a Christian, if you're a patriotic American, you love this country, as we all should, we've got to invest the time and have the resolve. We'll make our own march for truth. Stay tuned. We're back after this.
Do you realize that right now you're one of the star players on a team? I'm not talking about hockey or football. I'm talking about the home. Hi, I'm Mark Gregston with Parenting Today's Teens. Mom, Dad, on your family's team, you are one of the MVPs, and that stands for Most Valuable Parents. You guys are the dynamic duo. So when your family is heading toward a crisis, how can you make sure the team sticks together? First, present a united front to your children and insist that they treat you both with respect. Second, don't blame each other for the trouble you may be experiencing with your teen. And finally, as much as possible, make decisions about your teen together. Remember, parenting is a team sport, and you two are on the same team.
Learn how to get your teen back on track. Get instant access to Mark's free parenting course online at freeparentingcourse.com.
Judy Goodell and her husband set up a charitable gift annuity through the AFA Foundation.
What we love about it is that it represents stewardship principles that we feel strongly about. So we got very, very excited about this opportunity.
With a charitable gift annuity through the AFA Foundation, an AFA supporter can guarantee a permanent monthly income, as well as supporting the American Family Association for years to come.
We do feel convicted about really praying about all that God has really blessed us with. And so many people we know just want to leave it all to their kids. And we know the danger of that. And so we just are really just trying to pray through it, and God gave us great confirmation as we prayed that this would be a good use of the Lord's money.
Find out if a charitable gift annuity is right for you at 800-326-4543, extension 345, or email foundation@afa.net.
There's an African proverb that goes this way. Every morning in Africa, a gazelle wakes up. He knows he's got to run faster than the fastest lion or he's going to get killed. Every morning, a lion wakes up And he knows he's got to outrun the slowest gazelle or he's going to starve to death. It doesn't matter if you're a lion or a gazelle, when the sun comes up, you better start running. You ever feel that way? Don't. Life isn't a jungle, and the Lion of Judah is your protector. Get moving. But wait, you don't have to run. He'll go with you. I'm Steve Brown. You think about that. Share what you just heard with a friend. Go to youthinkaboutthat.com.
They say that boy insane. He gone, he lost his brain. He too zealous, he just trying to go against the grain. He got his whole life ahead of him, so this is strange. But they don't get that getting other shit just isn't gain. And marriage isn't pain. In fact, it's love and joy. God's plan for man and woman, they want to destroy by acting like it's prison. Avoid it cause it's hard. Look honestly, if it don't hurt, then you ain't loving hard. Look at Jesus on the cross, he got a ton of scars. Laid his life down for his brag, cause his love is large. My Lord, he set the bar high, and I'm falling short. But I'll be standing
Honored to be sitting in for Will and Miki Addison. By the way, Will and Miki, the voices you hear normally on Airing the Addisons, beloved radio personalities of the American Family Radio Network, they will be live in person at our summer camp, July 17th through 22nd. Hey, I want to thank everybody. Yesterday, I announced regarding our Biblical Worldview Camp. Every summer, we've done it for 24 years, we do Christian Camp. And this summer, July 17th through 22nd, we're going to be just outside of Raleigh, North Carolina. Very easy to get to, the state capital, Raleigh, North Carolina. Wonderful camp. Will and Miki Addison will be there. I'll be there. Youth culture expert Andy Lawrence, and just all kind of fun stuff. And I announced yesterday that we have a donor that wanted to underwrite 40 youth to go to Christian camp this summer. Now, listen to this. Our cost for our summer camp, and we talk about what it means to be a disciple, how to walk with Jesus, how to defend your faith. We talk about America. We talk to these middle school and high schoolers about why they should love America and not be socialists, but be citizens here in this wonderful republic. We do so much at summer camp. It's impact for a lifetime, but it's biblical truth for God and country. Well, our cost is $399, but we had a donor who reached out to me Sunday afternoon, said, look, whether they can pay anything or nothing, we want kids to come to summer camp. So I'm going to give my email. And we had like 24 people email in yesterday. But I want your teens to come, and we'll have a ball, and we'll drill down deeply in what it means to be a disciple and a citizen. But email me, alex@alexmcfarland.com. Just very simple, alex@alexmcfarland.com. And we'll send you info about our Christian camp this summer, Biblical Worldview, with myself, Will, and Miki Addison, and so much more. And that's July 17th through 22nd. But right now, for a few more minutes, I want to hear from Colonel Ray Moore of the Exodus Mandate. We're talking about getting kids out of public school. Ray, I came to this position reluctantly, but I love the Lord, but I love America. And it breaks my heart to hear the anti-American, pro-Marxist rhetoric that passes for education in so many public schools. I mean, what motivated you to want to really be the pioneering voice in the movement to leave the public schools?
Well, my wife and I started homeschooling our oldest son when he was 6 years old. He's now 51. When I was finishing up my Master of Theology seminary training at Grace Seminary in Winona Lake, Indiana. And we had moved down to Purdue University in 77 to start a campus ministry, an evangelical outreach on the campus at Purdue University. And we just weren't comfortable putting him in a public school, and the Christian schools were financially too steep for us at that time. So we sort of discovered the idea of a family school. It really didn't exist. we didn't even know another family for about 5 years after that, but we started homeschooling our oldest very reluctantly. People thought we had flipped out, and we weren't sure ourselves that we hadn't flipped out, but we did it, and it just proved to be an incredible, marvelous experiment. We felt like we dug a gold mine up in our backyard. He went on to excel amazingly. He was homeschooled up through middle school. We did put him in a public school for a short time. We sort of look back on that with some amazement, but it was very daunting in those days. But he ended up in a private school and finished college in 1993, and he was one of the early homeschool kids to go through college level. And he graduated from the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina, and he was valedictorian and cadet colonel and regimental commander. Had a combination of awards that only happened 4 times in the history of that school.
Wow.
And so God enabled us to be, with his mercy and grace, to be very successful parents. All of our kids have done very well. And so
well, I was going to say this, Ray. Let me jump in. Forgive me in the interest of time, but you've got to feel pretty gratified. I mean, I got to say, people that I think 3 or 4 years ago thought you were a little radical, now they're saying that you were prophetic. And I know you give God the glory, but that's got to be fairly gratifying.
But in 97, I felt led to offer what we had been doing for 20 years to the country, and launched the Exodus Mandate Project in 1997. And we got a lot of rejection, and at that time, but we just kept at it. And it just sort of grew, and we've got now lots of groups doing this, and it's quite a great moment, and we'd live.
Well, do me a favor, give me the website again. We're gonna, I'm gonna have to have you back on. But
the most important one is publicschoolexit.com. That'll help people get started, and you have to be willing to go there and study. And then my webpage for my ministry is exodusmandate.org. But this is we're winning this fight now. Losing a lot of the other battles, but this is one we're winning.
Well, God bless you. We look forward to talking with you again. And folks, in having Colonel Moore on, I've got to just admire him for his courage and his convictions. But look, the education that your children get is so vital, because what you believe about truth is what you believe about values and priorities. And, education. Martin Luther said this, that the public schools would be the gates of hell if they didn't have God and truth as their basis. And so, we're talking about the future of the country, but we're also talking about the soul and the destiny of individuals, and those individuals whose eternity hangs in the balance might be your very own children. So we feel like this is important to talk about, and you pray about the educational future for your kids. But I've got a friend on the line right now that I want you to meet. I do a lot of traveling. For years I've been on the road, a different city like every weekend. Last fall I was in Kingsport, Tennessee, and I met a lot of young people, and I met some college students, one of whom is Lakie Derreck. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory here. Lakie Derreck is a college student at East Tennessee State University, where I will be tomorrow night. And she came, and a lot of her friends, they were talking about just the battle for truth on the college campus. And so we began to talk, and we set up an event that is going to be tomorrow night, and it is open to the public. And in a moment, we'll have her on to talk about this. And Turning Point USA, Charlie Kirk, I'm sure many of you know of Charlie Kirk. His organization is supporting this event and sponsoring it, and I'll be there to talk about what I believe is the assault on America, how to defend our nation before it's too late. This is taken from my book of the same name, and I'm going to talk about what I think is the most important subject, like virtually nobody is talking about, and that's the subject of morality. Because without moral boundaries, we really don't have a stable society. And before we get Lakie on, hey, I want to tell you a little story about homeschooling. A couple of years ago, I was on the road traveling. I was on the West Coast, and I was going to Modesto, California to speak. And I was in a public high school, and then I was to go from there to Colorado Springs, Colorado, to be a debate judge. There were homeschoolers doing Lincoln Douglas style debating, and I've led in those before, judged in those. Anyway, this is the extreme of public education versus homeschooling and private education. I'm in Modesto, California, and they're about to have me up to speak in a gymnasium of like 800 or 900 students, and like a fight breaks out. And I watched as the school administrators, literally could not bring the room under control. It was a very sad public school, and we never had our assembly because there was just so much pandemonium as the kids were fighting. So anyway, I fly to Colorado, and I go and I'm at a college campus where about 1,000 homeschool students, parents, families were there for this debate. And before I could get to where I was supposed to be, some kids came up and they said, "Mr. McFarland, we've read your books. In our homeschool group, we read your apologetics books." And I was like, "Oh, thanks. That's a great honor." And one of the students was asking me about Thomas Aquinas, the Christian thinker from 800 years ago. This was a middle schooler, homeschool kid. He said, "I've learned and I'm translating the Summa from Latin to English." Thomas Aquinas' Summa Theologica, the sum of theology. And I thought, what a contrast. In a California public high school, we can't even have an assembly because fights break out. I go to the homeschool conference, and middle schoolers are wanting me to sign their book and saying, "Mr. McFarland, aren't you proud? I'm translating Aquinas from the Latin to English." Here's my point. Education matters. And the outcomes of the worldviews present in the classroom yield very tangible results in the lives of the students. Well, listen, I'm so thrilled right now. A hero in my book is Lakie Derreck. She's a college student. She's on hold. Lakie, thanks for waiting, and welcome to the American Family Radio Network.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm super excited to talk about everything.
Well, exactly. And so I want to talk about the event tomorrow night, but let's hear about you, Lakie. What are you studying? What's your major? And then I want to talk about Lakie Derreck, the patriot and citizen. But give us your backstory, sister.
Yeah, so I am currently a sophomore at East Tennessee State University. I'm about to be a junior. And my major, I'm a media communications major with my concentration being public relations and advertising. And then I'm a political science and American Sign Language minor. And I'm looking at potentially going to law school after I'm done with college and maybe going to work for a think tank after that up in D.C. So the world is my oyster.
Well, exactly. Well, you're in our prayers and we're rooting for you. How did you get to be so passionate about this country? Lakie, I know you love America. I know you care about this country. How did those feelings get birthed in your heart?
So I was really just raised in church my entire life, and in my church they instilled in me, how blessed I was to be born here, where I have the freedom to worship God every day. And I also, you were talking about the difference between public and homeschooling. I was blessed to go to a private Christian school. My family's made a lot of sacrifices for that, and they also instilled with me. I did the Pledge of Allegiance every day, and I just learned my love of America through that. And I was born very opinionated, and from there, I ended up deciding I like to watch the news, and my love of America has kept going and growing and growing ever since.
Well, that's great. That's great. So your peers, your friends, and those that are of your age group, how do most of your friends feel about this country, Lakie?
Once again, I'll say I'm extremely blessed to be surrounded by like-minded people of both my political, but also my beliefs in God, and that's through my club, Turning Point USA. I've been able to make so many friends that way. But I will say, at college and overall, the overarching theme on most people using social media it's very much anti-God and very much anti-America worldview of things.
Do you think a lot of the students that you know, Lakie, that are kind of anti-American and down on this country, have they really thought it through? Like, okay, if America is not so great, what about the rest of the world? Because, I believe in comparison to the rest of the world, certainly in comparison to the rest of history, we got it really good. We got a great nation. But do you think a lot of the students and faculty that criticize America, have they really thought through the implications of their worldview?
No, and if you really look at the people who are so anti-America, they typically can't even tell you what year America was founded. And basically what I'm getting at is they have no idea anything about American history or world history for that matter, because the moment that people actually, if they were to sit down and truly read the Constitution or just read what it's like over in other countries, then people would be much more loving and appreciative to be born here rather than being born somewhere else. Because at the end of the day, whenever I ask people, if you hate America so badly, I will give you a one-way ticket to any other country in the world. You tell me where, and I'll buy it. They never take me up on the offer.
Yeah, exactly. Well, you are leading a campus conservative group, aren't you?
Yes, it is called Turning Point USA, and we like to advocate for free market, free speech, and limited government. We're a group that just advocates for ideas, and we are very much conservative and very much emboldened.
Yeah. And we've got an event tomorrow night now. We have a very brief break. Lakie, can you hang on? Because I want to talk about what people can do and what you and I are going to talk about on the campus tomorrow night. Can you hang on?
Yeah, you got it. I'll be right here.
Do you have a website you want to direct people to?
You can go look up us on Instagram. We're TPUSA. So go give us a follow and turn on our notifications so you can see what all we're doing on campus.
Sure. And folks, if you want to go to my own website, which is alexmcfarland.com, alexmcfarland.com, we've got info. Stay tuned. More with how the light of truth can shine on the campus as it's being shown through the life of Lakie Derreck and her friends at East Tennessee State, where I'll be tomorrow night. Stay tuned. We're back after this brief break on the American Family Radio Network.
Too busy to catch your favorite shows on the radio? Have no fear, because the AFR app is here. Download the app to have access to live broadcast, music streaming, as well as each podcast. Whether you're at work, at home, or on the go, it's easy to listen to AFR.
The AFR app is available not only for Apple and Android users, but also on Amazon Alexa and Roku.
Download the AFR app today at afr.net. Can we trust the Bible?
He says we saw this, and that sets the Bible apart from almost everything else in the ancient world and its religious pantheon of gods and goddesses.
The God Who Speaks, the important documentary from the American Family Association, is now available to watch for free on AFA's brand new streaming platform. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to watch this award-winning film today. thegodwhospeaks.org.
And my father, your great-grandfather, fought in World War II.
Really?
He was a gunner on the big ship out in the Pacific Ocean.
Wow.
Your great-grandmother did her part, too.
Was she on a ship?
Oh, no. She stayed back home. She and a lot of her friends worked really hard in a factory because the men had gone off to war.
Ooh.
And they held scrap metal drives to help in the war effort. The folks back home were heroes, too.
Here at the American Family Association, we consider you the heroes back home. As you fulfill your responsibility of caring for your family day to day, your partnership with us is crucial as we fight the enemies of freedom in America. Thank you for your commitment to the American Family Association.
Grandpa, what's a scrap metal drive?
Let's get some cookies, and I'll tell you all about it.
So there's this couple named Kyle and Katie, and they were excited. They were expecting their third child.
And then they got some really bad news. Their unborn baby desperately needed surgery in utero. They had switched the way they pay their healthcare bills from health insurance to MediShare. So they were wondering, is this going to work?
It's a life, and it's my son's life. And, we should all be doing anything we can for that.
Kyle knew they were looking at a mountain of medical bills.
And of that, I had to pay almost nothing.
We felt like MediShare was rallying behind us, almost like family.
MediShare is a community of Christians who care about people like Kyle and Katie and little Liam, who is now a happy little boy who loves to play outside with his brother and sister.
Liam's around because of that.
We'll always remember.
Find out how you can save $500 a month or more on your health care. Call 833-44-BIBLE. That's 833-44-BIBLE. 833-44-BIBLE.
Yeah. A mighty fortress. A mighty fortress. A mighty fortress is our God. Yeah. A bulwark. A bulwark never failing. Yeah. He's a helper.
God bless America. The story of America has been the story of individuals making a difference. When I was a couple of years ago in Shippensburg, Pennsylvania, I went to Gettysburg, and my wife and I stood on the spot where Abraham Lincoln had given the Gettysburg Address and said, the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Well, in a socialistic Marxist system, another word for that is statism, and it's not by the people or for the people, it's for the state. And it's the loss of individual rights, individual property ownership. It's the rights of the individual are subordinated for the big machine, the monster called the state. Well, we're talking about truth and liberty with a young patriot, Lakie Derreck of East Tennessee State University. I can't wait to be there tomorrow night. And hey, give some instruction, Lakie. And I want to get back to talking about you and the difference you're making. But where will we be tomorrow night? Can the public come? Where should they park? For those of us that can come to East Tennessee State tomorrow night, give us the instructions, Lakie.
Okay, yeah. So it's going to be in the DP Student Cult Center. You can put that directly into your MapQuest, and it'll take you right to it. Right across from the Student Cult Center, it's lots 33 and 34. And that's a perfect place to park. There's also the parking garage. And right whenever the event starts, I believe it's all parking's free at that time of the day. So you can come, and then we'll be on the first floor of the Cult Center in the auditorium, and we'll have signs out, too, to help you guys once you get inside the building.
And it is free to the public, isn't it?
Yeah, completely free to the public, and we're also going to have lots of free merch for you guys to pick up and take. As many conservative turning point items you can imagine, you can pick up. I'm super excited.
Well, that's great. That's great. And I'm going to speak on my book, The Assault on America, and how to defend our nation before it's too late. We'll do some Q&A. Let me ask you, Lakie, for those your friends and your peer group and kids that are on the fence, maybe they get to college and they didn't really know that the country was being criticized, and so they're just kind of like on the fence. What kinds of questions do you get from your friends about, why is everybody talking about God and country and America and, capitalism versus socialism? What are the kind of questions that your peer group would have about these issues, Lakie?
Lots of times we get questions regarding like the socialism aspect of things, about like healthcare, or about how we justify like being pro-life and how it's not a woman's choice if it is the woman's body. But we all know the science is it's two bodies there, two sets of DNA. But we also see a lot of questions just regarding mainly healthcare, I feel like, and why should that not be free? Is it not a right? Questions about guns and just different things like that.
Mm-hmm. And what do most of your friends feel about these issues? For instance, the question of, is healthcare a human right? I know how you and I would answer that question, but how would most of your friends answer that question?
Well, thankfully, most of the people that I'm surrounded by do tend to agree with what I say and what me and you would believe. But there are so many people, and I especially find this too within the Christian group now, just apathetic Christians who would look at that and say, yes, I do believe that healthcare should just be free. And I just spoke to a girl the other day, and she actually was telling me how she believes that healthcare should just be given, and a lot of things about just like gay marriage and how she feels like they can do whatever they want and all these different things. So there definitely is some of that pushback too.
Well, you have started a campus conservative club, and now did you start it just like independently, or is it a chapter of Turning Point USA, or kind of what's the makeup of your club, Lakie?
Yeah, so our club was actually started, it was originally under another conservative club on campus, and then my friend Rachel Harrington, she's the president of Turning Point. Me and her, we ended up going over and making Turning Point separate from the other conservative club there on campus. And now we're fully functioning. This is our first semester as a school-sponsored club. We have great officers that are helping us along, and it's a lot of work, but we have a lot of fun doing it. So,
yeah, has it been well received, or was there any pushback on it?
So I think that we get a good mixture. Like, we experienced it all. We've been hissed at, yelled at, just name the craziest thing you can think of, and we've had it happen
hissed
to
at?
us. But yes, we've been hissed at. It's
like a hissing like a snake.
Yeah, very, very bizarre thing. And
that is bizarre.
Yes, very, very crazy. And we'll try to make those people we'll be like, well, come over here and see what we're about, and they refuse. So we try to make have insightful discussions with people, whether they do something absurd or whether they give us a dirty look or whether they look really happy that we're sitting there. So we just want to have conversations and convert some people over to the conservative side of things.
Well, when I hear something like that, because, you read in the scripture about, they hissed and slandered and cursed at Jesus. You and I know, there's worldview and there's philosophy, and I believe that the good arguments are on the side of conservatism. But besides just logical thinking, this is a spiritual battle, isn't it, Lakie? The hissing, doesn't this reaffirm in your mind that really what we're dealing with are spiritual issues?
Yes, and I look at basically every issue from the side of a conservative issue, but I do look at it as a spiritual battle. People are constantly talking about the culture war. I feel like we are greatly fighting that. And I do feel like even just from the more prominent, worse issues, you were talking earlier about people trying to trans 5-year-old children or grooming 5-year-old children, or even looking at pedophiles and wanting to call them minor attracted persons. There is a spiritual issue going on, and they're coming for our children, and they're coming for the future of America to just completely destroy it. And the way to do that is to remove all morality and to completely take any ounce of God that we have left and to take it completely away.
Lakie, I know you've got to go here in a minute because you've got school and work, but I want people to pray. Listen, folks, I meet hundreds and hundreds of young people every year on the road. Lakie Derreck is a college student. She and her friends are doing a great work to represent Christ and to stand for this country. And I want people to pray for you. What are your long-term plans? Lakie, if the Lord said, tell me where you want to be in 10 or 15, 20 years, because we want to pray for you, sister. What are your long-term plans?
Well, definitely I do feel called to run for office one day, whether that be Senator, Congresswoman, Governor of Tennessee. I don't 100% know, but I know that whatever I do, I want to make a positive change in my state and in the nation. So definitely be praying for me as I go through that and try to navigate politics, because it is definitely a crazy world. And then just pray for me too as I kind of am about to graduate college, and I'm trying to decide on should I go to law school or should I not go to law school, and just different things of that nature, all big decisions. So that's pretty much my plan long term.
Well, we will pray for you. And I just, as much as I appreciate you, I just wish there were hundreds of thousands more just like you, sister. Tell us again where we'll be tomorrow night. And those of you, look, Kingsport, Johnson City, East Tennessee, come on out. I want to meet you on the campus tomorrow night. I'll be speaking. Lakie, tell us how to get there.
Okay, so we're going to be in the DP Student Culp Center on the first floor auditorium. There's going to be some signs out there to help you find it. There's also help desk set up all around campus to help you find it. The student lots 33 and 34 are great for you to park in. There's also a parking garage that would be great to park in. And I believe you can even Google a map of East Tennessee State University, help you find whatever building you need to get to, which is the DP Student Culp Center. Entirely free event, so we hope to see you guys out there.
Hey, thanks for putting all this together, and I look forward to meeting you and all of your colleagues there at the campus tomorrow night, Lakie. Thanks so much.
I agree. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. You have a blessed day.
God bless you. And folks, Alex McFarland here, sitting in for Airing the Addisons. You're listening to the American Family Radio Network. One of the subjects I was talking to some students earlier today, and there's this mindset of socialism, that it would somehow be better to be socialistic. I think about the quote by Margaret Thatcher back in the Reagan years. By the way, you really ought to read her biography. And I think it's something like 1 Downing Street is the name of her biography, which I read a few years ago. But Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher said, socialism is great until you run out of other people's money. Because, see, here's the thing. You can't get something out of nothing. You can't pull matter out of thin air. Well, God can do it because he spoke the universe into existence. But you and I can't do that. And what's missing, well, there are a number of things missing from the socialistic Marxist worldview. But the idea that just from a finite pie you can get wealth. Well, part of the beauty of principled capitalism, and that's what we've had in this country, not just capitalism, but principled capitalism, is that people can work and wealth is created. Now, do you know, as our country was being settled, we know that William Bradford in the Plymouth colony, they tried socialism and they abandoned it. But do you know that previous to that, even it was tried and abandoned in the Jamestown colony? And what many scholars have said is, had the Pilgrims not embraced basically a free market system, and James Kennedy and Jerry Newcomb, both with earned doctorates, in their book, they said, quote, the result of the Pilgrims' adoption of a free market system was that the following harvest, once they abandoned a socialistic communal model, and they said, look, you've got your own land, you can work the land, you can keep what you earn, grow your food. The next year following that, they had the most bountiful harvest ever, and an abundant Thanksgiving was celebrated. And here's what James Kennedy, PhD, Dr. Jerry Newcomb said, quote, had they not gone from socialism into private enterprise, it is likely that the Pilgrims would have starved to death, would have died off. Note it well, when socialism was abandoned, America thrived. And if socialism is reinstated in America, America will be abolished. Well, a lot of people don't know, and I document in my book, The Assault on America. By the way, it's published by Harrison House Publishers of Pennsylvania. And I give God the glory when it first came out, the book, The Assault on America, How to Defend Our Nation Before It's Too Late. It was number 1 in 3 categories on Amazon. I give God the praise. But I document in that book that socialism, communal living, was tried 80 times in America before 1900, and 80 times it was abandoned. And so why would we be be attempting it again. And that's really the pipe dream and the blindness. People often say, well, I know it's never worked anywhere. It's always failed everywhere. The standard of living has always gone down for everybody. It never works, but it will work for us. Boy, that's delusional, isn't it? Now, do we want people to have health care? Of course. Do we want people to have food and life choices and the things they need? Of course. But the answer is not to artificially control the economy by the government and to forcibly confiscate wealth that you've worked for and earned and then to redistribute. No, that it never works. It never works. But we've got to understand that the founders so wisely envisioned our rights are the transcendent, timeless rights that come from God. And so I get nervous when people say health care is a right. A liberal politician 2 years ago said that good internet service is a human right. Can you believe that? Dial up, never. Poor Wi-Fi, no. Good high speed is a human right. That's crazy. Now, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, the ability to chart one's own destiny, sure, those are natural rights. But health care is a product. Health insurance is a product people can buy. Now, I want people to have good health care, but it's not the role of government to provide Wi-Fi, cell phones, and health care. Hey, God bless you. God bless America. Thanks for listening. Hope to see many of you at East Tennessee State tomorrow night. And stay tuned. In just a few moments, we'll have Exploring the Word with myself and Bert Harper. Don't go away. Keep it tuned to the American Family Radio Network.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or American Family Radio.